It's small crowd so far, but you're good.
It's about quality.
The ranks are thinning in Illinois, you know. Yo, where are we going to get up to today?
The plan is to get to Tess at the bottom, Testament Aleph. So roughly a block and a half again today.
Tess?
So we'll try and stick, Testament Aleph.
Up to the Mishnah, Halacha Gimel. To the Halacha Gimel.
Bottom. So, very difficult. All right. So, morning, everybody. Today is who knows what daf it is. I think we're, 2 blot behind plus today. So, total 3 blot. Actually, I see in the app because they always do the Chazar app. And I open it, it takes me straight to Daf Yud. So, but we're not Daf Yud yet. We'll get there. Mitzvah Shem. All right, so today is Zion. We're going to continue where we left off on Zion and Beis Mesachas Shkalim. So the Mishnah at the bottom says, so B'shlosha, Prakim B'shana, Terminus Alishka. 3 times of the year, they go ahead and they take the money from the Lishka, from the treasury, right, in order to go ahead and purchase karbanos for the tzibur, and for the public offerings, Froisa Pesach, Froisa Atzeres, Froisa Chag, right? Basically 15 days before, we'll soon see why 15. Frosa means half, right? Half of 30. So 15 days before Pesach, 15 days before Shavuos, and 15 days before Sukkot. And these are also the same times of Meiser Behema. So even though Meiser Behema, right, they're technically, right, the halach is you have to do, you gather all your animals, and then you take, 1/10 is your Meiser Behema to be taken to Yerushalayim. The question is, okay, where's your starting point, and when do you take your animals? So during these 3 times, one should go ahead and take their Meiser Behema. We'll soon see why. But Nazai Omer, he says, no, Be'esrim Tisha Be'adar, on the 29th of Adar. So think of that, 29th of Adar, which is, right, the day before Rosh Chodesh Nisan. He says the day before, we'll soon see why. Bechad Sivan, and a much shorter time, not 15 days before Sivan, right? It's only 6 days before, on the 1st of Sivan, and also the 29th of Av, which is 1 day before Elul, which is basically like, 40, almost 45 days before Sukkot. And Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, there's another opinion. The 1st of Nisan, the 1st of Sivan, but also the 29th of Elul. So basically argues on whether the first day of Nisan or the 29th day of Adar. And why do they say that the 29th of Elul and not the 1st of Tisha? Because it's Yantiv. He said 29th. Really, it should be the 1st of Tishrei. However, as we all know, on the 1st day of Tishrei, you can't do it because that is Rosh Hashanah. You can't take Ma'aser Yantiv. Therefore, they do it 1 day before on the 29th of Elul. Fine. Zakti Gemara, so Amir Rev called the Hani, they'll call hey to Tanina Pros Palga. Anytime it says the word pros, it means half. And Palga the Shloshim Yom Kadil Moed Shadarshin the Halacha, right? Half of the 30 days, we have the halacha 30 days before the holiday, one should start darshaning the halachas. So half of those 30 days is 15 days. Then Gronos, now we get into the Meiser Behema, and these are the times of the Meiser Behema. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan Pnei Shehein Pirkei Leido. Why these 3 times? Because the animals, when they carry the animals 4 to 5 months. So these are the different periods of time when the animals tend to give birth. So there's the early ones, right, that come for Pesach, the medium ones, right, and then the late ones are all by Tishrei. Rabbi Yachbar Ritanchum Barchia B'Shem Rishub Levi says no, they should have a Behema Matzui Lo Regal. Why during these 3 periods of times of the year? Because those are the times when people are regal, and therefore they need animals. So therefore, go ahead and take your Meiser Behema so that people have their animals available. Rabbi Yudin also have these animals available, not just to go ahead and offer them for karbonos, but a person has these halachas of baltacher. A person should not delay, and therefore one should not go ahead and delay his bringing of his karbonos that he's required to go ahead and bring. And animals will be available. All right, turn the page. Right, and it says right. So it says there that Tikkun Chadash also says even on Meiser Behema, a person would violate Baal Tacher if he doesn't go ahead and bring his animals. Fine, top of the page in Chesed Aleph. So Taman Tanina, we learn over there. So it says in the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, it says on the first of Elul is Rosh Hashanah, for comes Ma'aser Behema, right? We know there's different halachas of Rosh Hashanah of the new year. So the first of the year is considered to be the first of Elul. In other words, anything brought from the first of Elul all the way throughout the year until the 29th of Av is considered to be 1 year, and those animals are basically are brought together into a pen, and you take 1/10 as Ma'aser Behema. And Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Aimer, Bechab Tishrei, and the first of Tishrei, a month later, not the first of Elul, first of Tishrei, and Ben Azai Aimer, Halulim Misasim Fnei Yasser. This is no, those that are born during Elul, those have their own time. In other words, basically anything before Elul is 1 year. Those in Elul are its own. Anything born in Elul, you'll put those in a pen and take Ma'aser there. And anything born after, you'll take those. And Amar Rav Chuna says, Rav Chuna is Talmud Rabbi Meir. What's the reason according to Meir? Who's the first opinion? Who said in the first of Elul is Rosh Hashanah for Ma'aser Behema? Ad kan hein mismatzos leiled miyashanos. Right? Until this point, that's when they still are giving birth up until Elul, right? Is when they're giving birth from the old animals. However, but however, from here on out, the animals that basically were conceived after Nisan, and those were conceived after Nisan, those are already part of the year because they're already, from Nisan till El is 5 months. Therefore, that's already into the following year. And Rabbi Yosi bar Rabbi Bun b'shem Rav Chuna, so Talmud Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. So their reason who says that Echa B'Tishrei, that was they were the second opinion in the Mishnah. The pasuk says, "Love shu karim atzon," right? He says the basically the tzon, the sheep where they were wearing their karim, but they were pregnant, right? Elu habachiros. These are referring to the animals that basically were born early. And v'amalkim yatfu avar elu hafelos, and those are the late ones. And yisaru afisharim elu ve'elu nechnasim l'dir lisasu. So therefore, they all come together. Basically, the early ones and late ones, they all come together, and therefore they're together. So even if an animal was born early or late, they're still all we take Ma'aser together. And Ara ben Azai, ho'il ve'elu amikach ve'elu amikach yehu halalim misasim fnei atzman. Right? Since one opinion is that Elul is part of the next year, and the other opinion is Elul is part of the previous year. So therefore, we'll say that the ones in Elul, because it appears to be a suffix, those are Ma'aser. They take Ma'aser together. Anything born after that is the next period of time, and anything earlier is the earlier is from the previous year. Taketzat. How so? So no dulo chamisha be'av v'chamisha be'elul v'chamisha be'tishrei. If you have 5 born in Av, and then 5 in Elul, and then 5 in Tishrei, ein mitzaref. None of them are mitzaref because it's 3 different periods of time, right? There's before Elul, during Elul, after Elul. So therefore, you only have 5, 5, 5. You don't combine any of them. And no dulo b'chamisha b'tishrei v'chamisha be'av. But if you have some that were 5 were born in Tishrei, and then 5 born in the following Av, right, all the way later, like 10 months, right, 10 months later, then Harei Elu Mitzarefim. Those would be Mitzaref to one another. Ben Azai Machriya Divrei Salmida also. What did Ben Azai come to go ahead and be Machriya to decide the halacha, right? Ben Azai comes and he argues, right, with have line right. One second. Ben Azai, right? So he was quoted, right, as whether there was Rabbi Meir, there's Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, and then Ben Azai comes to be Machri and says, okay, since this, well, the halacha is like this. But he was the Rabbi, right? So he comes to decide what his students are arguing. So he makes a pshara. He's the one who should decide what the halacha is, and not use each one of them as like, I don't want to go against their words. So Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Me'ashi, B'Shem Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak. So he says, no, Shekei Nefechu Aleh Avos Ha'olam. It was not his students who originally had this machlokas. Rather, it was the quote unquote Avos Ha'olam who had this machlokas earlier. Umaninu Avos Ha'olam. Who were these fathers of the world? Who were these titans who came before Ben Azai? So Tam Rabbi Yirmiyah, that was Rabbi Yishmael, the Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Akiva. So Zayis Sameris Ben Azai Chaver V'Tamid Hayid the Rabbi Akiva. This seems to say that he, in addition, not only being a chaver, but he was also a talmid of Rabbi Akiva, right? Because he didn't want to go against Rabbi Kiva, so he made a pshara, says, okay, the ones in Elul will have their own zman. So Ein Tamar the Rabbi. So he says, if you say that he was a teacher, so Is Barnash Amar the Rabbi Hoyel ve'elu Amar Kaf Elu v'Kaf. Because if you say he was his Rebbe, then how could once again you have the same kasha and says, what is he coming to go ahead and try to answer up, right, or make good the words of his Talmud? He should say what it is, and his Talmudim should follow him. And Rabbi Yavam B'Shein Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yitzchak, he says, no, Shma lo mina. Let's learn from here. Amru lo ben Azai. Some of the ben Azai said to them, Al Chaluki anu mitzdarim. Right? So in other words, the ones that they argue on, right, we're already mitzdayer. Ella Shabbat al-Achloik Alena Sashavin. But now you want to go ahead and even have a machloikas in a case which is not unanimous, right? Even the ones where they agree on. So Zosamaris, right? So that was said. This is another case in the case of in Bava Basra. So in other words, over there. So, but you see that he had, he deferred to them. So it must be the Benazir Chavir Talmid Rabbi Kiva. He was a Talmud and he was a Chavir and a Talmud to Rabbi Kiva. See, saying to my Rabbi, because if you say it was his Rabbi, Izbar Nash Hamar Rabbi El Shabbos Alachoik Alenas Shabbat. Once again, you'd have the same kasha in Bava Basra as to say, hey, why is he, not willing to argue on his Talmud? It must be that he himself was a Talmud to Rabbi Akiva. And Taman Tanina, we learn over there, any animal was born from the first of Tishrei, right? Like, Rosh Hashanah time, until Asr V'Tisha B'Elul, until 354 days later, 353 days later, Hare Elu Mistarf. Those animals are all mitzdarf to one another. Chamish lifnei Rosh Hashanah, v'chamish lachar Rosh Hashanah. If five are born before Rosh Hashanah, if five afterwards, a mitzdarf. They are not mitzdarf. Chamish lifnei Agaran, v'chamish lachar Agaran, hare elu mitzdarf. But if, now remember, there's the year of where they're born, and then there's the times we said you should go ahead and tithe them, right? Go ahead and take your meiser, right? And we said the reason to take the meiser 3 times a year, right? It's not 3 periods during the year, right? We said go ahead and take it is because that's the time for it to make animals available. So now if one goes ahead and there's a time, let's say before Shavuos, right, where one should go ahead and do the time before Shavuos, and some are born a little bit before, a little bit afterwards, they are still mitzdaref halachically. And Amar Rabbi Yossi, he says Rabbi Yossi hada omer. So this means to say, ma'aser behema lo asu asa lo kichenet v'lo kishlish. Now we have halachas when it comes to ma'aser of grains and fruits. It depends once the things start to grow. Okay, once the fruits start to go to a certain point, right? Once it matures, whether it grows a third or whether it's on a tree and it begins to bud, right? Those are halachas when it comes to, right? When it comes to fruits and vegetables. However, that's not the same as ma'aser behema, right? We don't have that. In other words, we look at when the animal was born, not when it was conceived. So ein tamar kechenet. If you would say it's like kechenet, right, when it begins to grow, at least they call say any animal that is pregnant, right, from the 1st of Tishrei until the 29th of Elul. And ain't tamar kashlish. And also don't say once it's grown a third, at least they call naladim ad esrei mishnayim Elul, right? Because then it should be an animal that grows a third has to be basically an animal which is sort of ripe. Now, an animal is not ripe until basically it's ripe for a korban until it's already 7 days old. You can't go ahead and shecht an animal which is within its first 7 days, right? So therefore, you have to wait till the 8th day. If that was the same halacha as if by fruit, it would be by ma'aser behema. You wouldn't be able to take the ma'aser behema for only until animals that were born up until the 22nd, right, of Elul. Why? Because they need 7 days to mature to the proper age, right? So therefore, but since it doesn't say that, so it appears that it's not kashlish. However, Rabbi Shammai, B'Shem, Rabbi Boon, Rabbi Chia says, no, kashlish asu oisa. No, it is like a third. In other words, we do wait till it sort of matures at some point. In other words, we do take into account that week. And Rabbi Shimon, like Rabbi Shimon, right? So he holds that an animal, right, so an animal which is less than 8 days old, mechusar zman, right, that's considered lacking time because it's not 8 days old to offer yet. So even though it's not 8 days old, it can be brought to go ahead and take ma'aser. Sounds like, so Rabbi Shimon would argue with those, right, who say that if it's not 8 days old, it would not. And come Rabbi Mana im Rabbi Shammai, so he says, Amar le, atamarta hada milsa, right? did you say this? Tamantaninu, we don't over there. Benazai, Armim, Halili, Misasim, the Atzman. He says over there that those who were born at Elul, they have their own, right, their own period of time where we take the Garan from the animals in Elul. Right? Lo afilu noilad ad eser v'tisha be'elul, and does not mean Elul. And the animal is born from the 1st until the 30th, or until the end of Elul, right? Not till the 22nd or the 29th, right? Not until the end, right? But it should be 7 days earlier. If you hold 7 days earlier, it shall only be 1 through 22, not 1 through 29. So if that's the case, since he doesn't take those 7 days into account, so he's saying he holds like Rabbi Shimon, right? And not like the Rabbanan. So Gemara answers no. So Kamadat Amarta Le'al Rabbanan, Manichin L'Shem.
He froze again. Oh, and he's gone. He'll be back.
I'm back. Am I here?
Oh, you're back. Where are you? Oh, there you are. You're back.
I forgot to put on my Wi-Fi. I just figured out the Wi-Fi yesterday here, but I'm still going on Wi-Fi. But tomorrow, Blinetta to remind me before to go into the Wi-Fi. I don't know if I jump on Wi-Fi, will like disconnect me again?
I don't know.
We'll go there. So tomorrow, Blinetta, I'll remember. All right. So the Gemara answers. Am I good? Yeah. So the Gemara answers. So no, it's just like, is so Kamadat Amar Al Rabbana Manichin L'Shana Above Eim Asim B'nei Shnasan. Just like we say, you leave it for the next year. So Kenata Amar Al Banazi. So you can say that what you said about Nazai Manichin L'Garan Above Eim Asim B'nei Elam. Right, the ones that were born after the 22nd. Right, those are for the next period of time. And therefore, you can say the same way you say here, but when it says the end of the year, it doesn't mean the end of the year. It means the end of the year minus 7 days, because the animals have to go ahead and be old enough at the end of the year, i.e., they have to be already on their 8th day. And Amar Rabbi Chia Zaysimir, this means to say Yamim Shabachor Mechusar Zman Behen Olil Lovisech Shnasa. This would say that the days of, once again, at Bechor, the halachas of Bechor you give to the Kohen, right? So the days of the Yamim Shabachor Mechusar Zman, the days knows before Bechor is to his 8th day, the first 7 days, does count towards its first year. And Amar Rabbi Mana, Amar Rabbi Yoina, Abba, so he says, Shema lo min Ada. You can learn from here. It says, Kol b'chor asher yivoled hazachar takdish, right? Any b'chor that is born, haketzat mishas leidaso at mayna lo shana, right? Now it's from the time that it was born, right? Now it was not the time when it becomes fit for, i.e., its 8th day, rather from the time it's born, because the pasuk says, Kol b'chor asher yivoled. That's when you go ahead and you begin counting its first year. That when you have to go ahead and give the bechor to the Kohen. Fine. Next Mishnah. All right, gets a little easier here. The shalosh kupais shel shalosh sayim. All right, term salishka. So we say, right, 3 kupas, each of 3 sa, right? You take from the lishka. So you go ahead and you collect. Okay, now it's, let's say, the one before Pesach, right? So you go ahead and you take 3 boxes from the lishka. And because of them, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, it says on them, Aleph, Beis, and Gimel. The Greek letters, Alpha, Beis, Gamma, the Greek letters are written on these 3 boxes. And Einatar Nichnas, Lo, Pargud, the Chafos, Veloy, B'minal, Velo, B'sandal. So when a person goes ahead and takes out, right, he doesn't go in, right, with any sort of hem on his clothing. And always basically where someone can go ahead and hide some coins, right? Or with shoes or sandals, you put it under your feet, or hide it with tefillin, now with tefillin, also with an amulet. Shema yani, v'yamir ma'ani me'alishcha ani. So because why? If he loses money, people say, oh, you know why he lost money? Because he's a thief. He stole from the lishka. That's why he lost money. Or Shema yasher, or maybe he'll come wealthy. V'yamir, people will say that Shumas halishcha hasher. You know why he's rich? Because he's a thief. He stole money from the lishka. Let's say because a person should remain clean and should be without any sort of doubt in terms of his honesty in front of man, just like he is before Hashem. As the pasuk says, a person should be clean, right, from Hashem and Yisrael. And a person should find, be in good favor in the eyes of Hashem and man. Fine. Zok the Gemara, bottom of Ches Amar Aleph, 3 lines from the bottom. Talmud Tanina, we learn over there. Mefanin afilu arba v'chamesh kupos, right? So we have a halacha which says one can go ahead and clear away on Shabbos, talking about the proper shear. One can clear away even to make space for the students to go ahead and sit down. You can clear straw away even 4 or 5 kupos. The lashon of the Mishnah over there, so use the word kupos. And Rabbi Ziri Shalos Rabbi Yoshia, Kamush.
You're out again. He's there, but he's not there. Oh, you're back.
Okay, yeah, I just switched to the Wi-Fi. So
Okay,
hopefully
you're
it'll be
on.
better. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, we good? Hopefully.
Yeah, you're good.
No,
Top of the Yamud. Start from top of the Yamud.
Top of the Yamud. So he says, okay, how much is a kupa? The mission over there doesn't really explain. Just says you can clear 4 or 5 boxes. How much is a kupa? So he says, okay, Nilmad, let's go ahead and learn Sasam and Meforish. Let's learn something which is unknown from something which is explained. The Tani will learn in our own mission over here in Shkolim. It says, kupa shalosh side. They would go ahead and take boxes. Each box was 3 saw, right? So you see the word kupa is a box means a measurement of 3 saw, right? And so there, which is shein tisha side, which is 9 saw, shein eskin sheva side, which is a total of 27 of the year, right? Because you take 3 boxes of 3. In the 3 boxes of each one is 3, so that's 9, right? And 3 times the year, 9 times 3 is 27. Termis Lishka, that's how much you take out of Lishka. The Kasuv Alean, and it says up there, Aleph Beis Gimel. And we write on there, Aleph Beis Gimel, Mipnei, Ma Kasuv Aleim, Aleph Beis Gimel, Loimar Mistavik Mirushaina, Kaidim Lishnia. Because you're supposed to take from the first box first, and then the second box, Mirushaina, Kaidim Lishis, and then the second box for the third, and there was this order. So the newer coins, even though it's all taken at the same time, you take from here, whatever we take from here, and it's left over. Then you take the next box, but the Gemara, and we'll see later on in the Masechta, actually, what happens with the older boxes, or what happens with the coins that are left over from the first box. Do you take those before the second box? So we'll learn later on. Now, Taman Tanina, speaking of different shirim, now we're going to get into a little tangent. Hamaitzi yain kedei mezigas hakos. We actually saw this in Psachim, so it's a nice little chazara, which you saw a couple weeks ago. One who goes ahead and takes out wine. How much is one chayiv for? So he's chayiv the amount of wine, if it's the amount for mezigas hakos, for diluting a cup of wine. So one drinks a cup of wine, right? So the amount is to dilute it. And how much is that? So Rabbi Yishal, Rabbi Yeshia, Kamashir Shakos. What is a shir kos? Amalei Nilman Sasmei Furish. Let's learn something which is not explained from something which is explained. The Tani Rabbi Chia, Arba Kaises Sha'amru, the 4 cups that we just had on Pesach, Yeshnan Ravis Shal Yain B'Italki. He said over there that they should be a revis of Italian wine, right? Yain and Italki. So in other words, you have the amount of cups, if you put all of the raw wine without diluting it, right, is each one a quarter of a revis. You add up 4 revios, you have a full revis of meziga of wine, right? Because you have to have 4 cups, each one is diluted. So remember, the shear you drink is a revis, and the amount of undiluted wine is a quarter of a revis, right? So a quarter of a revis is the amount of the chashav shear. And Amar Rabbi Yosi, Baravin Mishum Rabbi Yechanan, the Rabbi Yehudi, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, the Tani Mayim Kedei Gemia. How much is one chayiv if he carries water? The amount of one would swallow. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, Kedei Lashu Ben a kilo, to go ahead, enough water to go ahead, or liquid to put in a salve for an eye, right? And Yayin Kedei Gemia. And others say, it says, Yayin Kedei Gemia, and Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kedei Bezigas Hakos. And on that version, it says over there, Rabbi Yehuda says the amount of one is chayiv for the amount of that is wine is needed for a diluted cup of revis wine, which would be a quarter of a revis. And mazu b'kaman, how much to go ahead and dilute it? So nishman min adol, let's learn from here. Mayin kedei gemia, right? And Rabbi Yehuda Omer kedei lashubas a kilo. So it says over there the amount of water for that one would swallow. Rabbi Yehuda says the amount that would be used for a salve for the eye. And yayin kedei gemia. And then when it comes to that which you for swallowing, Rabbi Yehuda Omer kedei mezigas hakos. So Hadamar Mazug Kedei Mezigas Kos. Over here we see that according to Rabbi Huda's other shita, when it comes to wine on Shabbos, so we see over here that it is a quarter of a revis, right? And therefore we see Rabbi Huda holds that a quarter of revis is the amount you dilute it, which is a 3-to-1. And Kama Shir Shal Kaisais. How much is the shear of the Dalit Kaisas? Rabbi Avin Omar, Te Tarton Ravia, right? it is a tetarto. It was a shear and a quarter, so it's 5 quarters of a tetarto. And mahu lishtas b'kirachacha. I want to say another shaila by our dalad kosas. Can one drink them all at one time? Right. So midav Rabbi Mana, Rabbi Yasi, halel im shaman bevesa knesses siyatza. So by the fact that one could be yaitse the mitzvah of halal in the shul and others before, so hadaimer im shasam b'kirachacha yatza. So too, now if you do that prematurely, not at the seder, but you only do it only at shul, you can be yaitse. So too, if you drink all the cups together as one, you'll be yaitse. All right. Although we did see in Mesechus Pesachim that the Gemara was not like this. You can't drink them all in one shot. And mahu lishtay son bepiskan. Can you go ahead and drink him little by little, right? So klum amru elo sheishted. All he says, right, that you should drink it and lo sheishtake, you shouldn't become drunk. So therefore, im shasa piskan afu ein bishtake. A person drinks it, a little at a time, then a person will not become drunk. Then l'chayra, according to this, the person would be yaitse to drink it all together. A person would be yaitse if he drank it each one, not each cup separately, but even the sips of cups throughout the evening. At mahu, let's say behind shashvis, can you go ahead and use wine from Shemitah? Satani Rabbi Yisha, yaitzim behind shashvis, you can use wine from Shemitah. At mahu, let's say konditin. Can you use konditin wine, which is spicy wine? So Satani bar kapara konditin kayayin. But he says another case that spicy wine is like wine. So therefore, one could go ahead and be yaitze with such wine. At mahu, let's say behind mezugin. Can you go ahead and use diluted wine? So once again, he says, beferish, the 4 cups, one can't fulfill whether they're chayin, whether they're raw, or whether they're diluted. As long as they taste and look like wine. And it's really better to go ahead and use red wine. I don't think we said this in Pesachim. Shinamar Pasuk says, Altira yayin kisad, maybe we did. Altira yayin kisadam ki yitain because so it says over there, don't go ahead and look at red wine, basically warning you about wine, but it was red, so the best type of wine is red wine. Satani, it was taught k'mavushal k'mesugo. Cooked wine is just like spicy wine. So ma'al this be vushal, can one be yaitse using cooked wine? So Rabbi Yaina, yaitse b'vein vushal, one can fulfill his obligation with cooked wine. And Rabbi Yonah goes the shitasa. Rabbi Yonah kat havishasi arba kaisi the pischa and havi chazik reishe ad chaga. Right, he would go ahead and he would have 4 cups, right, of wine that was not cooked. It was much stronger, and he would have a headache until Shavuos, right, until the next holiday. So for 7 weeks. So therefore, he was able to use mavush wine, which would not give him such a headache. And chamise chada miturnisa apuinahiri. Right, one time a certain lady. Right, the non-Jewish woman, she saw the face of, this is of who? So she said, I think this is, what is this? Yeah. So Rabbi Bar Law, she saw his face. So she said, one of 3 reasons why your face is like glowing, right? Oh, the shosti chamrat, either you're drunk, right? Or your face is, radiant, is shining because you lend, right? You're very rich. You lend on with interest. Or also you make money by raising pigs, which is also not permitted, in certain areas, right? So tipach rucha isa, right? Let your ruach of such a woman of you basically suffer. The chad milan talas mila lesbi, right? None of these things are true. Ella ufani shchichli. Rather, I learned Torah. The hadachsiv chachmas adam tayir panav. Right, the chachma of a wisdom person will shine. It will have his face shine. And Rabbi Avo asked the Tveria. One time, Rabbi Avo came to Tveria. Chamune tamid Rabbi Yechanan apu nehirim. So the talmidim of Rabbi Chiva saw that Rabbi Avo's face was shining. So I'm a talmidim of Rabbi Yechanan ashkech Rabbi Avo sima. Right. It looks like, our visitor, Rabbi Avo, he must have found a treasure, right? He's the gabe. So Rabbi Yechon knew he didn't find treasure. So Amarle, my ursa the chadasa shemata. What new chiddush Torah did you just learn that your face is shining? So Amarle, tasefta atika. So he says, I found an old tosefta and I saw that. So he says, and that's the karaleh chachmas adam teirpanav, right? His face was glowing from the chachmas adam, from his wisdom. And Amar Rabbi Chanin Luga de Raisa Tomnasa Atika de Moriasa de Tzipori. The lug that is discussed in the Torah, the one in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, is the same as the old Tomnisa measurement, right? They used to go ahead and and they would use that kli to go ahead and measure the fats of fish in Tzipori. And Amar Rabbi Yaina, the Chmanala, right, the base Rabbi Yaina Havi Machlin about Devash, right? And I also remember this same measurement, which is used for the fish fats, was also used to go ahead and measure Devash, honey, in the house of Rabbi Yaina. And Tani, it was taught Chatzi Shminis Tverinis, so a half of the Shminis, right? Half of a Shminis from Tveranis, from Tveria, right? Turn the page. Hayishana, the old one. Right? Says, I guess that was the amount of Revis. So Revis is a half of the eighth, half of the Shminis of Tveria, of the old Tveria. And Rabbi Yechon Hadid Didanu. This is actually the same Chatzi Shminis that we have nowadays. So if that's the case, Lama Kurli Atika, right? Mean begin Havi Biyami. So why do they call it the old one if that's the one that they currently have? So East Dami, some say the Hava Zeira Virapsa, some say that it was originally smaller. Right now, there's time of Moshe Rabbeinu, then it got smaller, and then it went back to the same size. East Dami, and some say the Azia, some say that no, that it went smaller, V'loy Azia, but it didn't go down all the way, come out the harvest as it was before, and then when it came back, so therefore, since it also it fluctuated, therefore they refer to the old one, and that was the one that with I guess if you don't have cancel culture, so whatever was, so that was one that they had, and therefore that one remained. And Kamu Shir Shel Kos, and how much is the Shir Shel Kos? Rabbi Yosi b'Shem, Rabbi Yosi ben Pazi, Rabbi Yosi bar Bibi b'Shem Rabbi Shmuel, Etzbayim, Al Etzbayim. Right? We actually had this when I was doing this with Dudi. Actually, we're doing the same time we did this in Maseches Pesachim. We discussed basically how much volume is there in Revis. So it's 2 etzbos by 2 etzbos by I think it was 2 by 2 by 2.7, right? So if you multiply that, that is the size of the Revis. And we brought it from Sukkim. I remember that I think the art school had a whole table of how to calculate it, and I didn't really understand the table. It was the top one that was more of the calculation that we did. But anyways, but the Gemara doesn't go into that Gemara here. But that is the size. If you basically take the liquid and you turn it into, you congeal it or you put it into a box, it's 2 etzbos by 2 etzbos by 2.7 etzbos. So Tani Yovish Kazayas Divrei Menassim. So he says that one who goes ahead and carries something which is dry, the size of kazayas, that is one is chai for the Reb Nassan, and Rabbanim the Kesar Reb Yosi bar Bibi Shem Shmuel. So Asya the Reb Nassan Reb Shimon, right? This halacha of Reb Nassan who holds the size of kazayas is that of Reb Shimon, and Kama the Reb Shimon Amar Revis. Kain Amar Reb Nassan Revis like she karesh v'yebo kazayas, because if you go ahead and you take a liquid which is the size of a revis, and you go ahead and congeal that, and you make it into a solid. That solid is the same size as a kazayas, which was 2 by 2 by 2.7. Rabbi Simon b'Shem Rabbi Shmuel Levi, Maisa b'Fridas Rabbi Shemesa. One time it was the donkey of Rabbi that died. V'tiara is dama mishum nevela, and they were matahir the blood. The blood, he said it was tar. Shal Rabbi Elazar. Now normally about halacha that a nevela, an animal that dies, right, that without shchita, right, a nevela, it's matame. But in this case, it was tar. So he said, until what amount? How much of the blood is tar? Right? So the question is it just the blood? Is it all blood? Is there a minimum amount that it was tar? You know it. Levi asked for Shimon Levi, ad revis tar. So it says, no, if it's less than a revis of blood from this donkey, then it's tar. Yasim revis, tummy. But however, if it's more than a revis, then it would be matami. However, Ubash Rabbi Eliezer al Deloy Chazer Le Rabbi Simon Shemusa. However, Rabbi Eliezer was upset with Rabbi Shimon, didn't go over this halacha with him when he first taught him this halacha. And similarly, Rabbi Havi Yosef Masni Hadin Uvda. One time he was talking about this ma'isa, and Amar Le Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Bisna was hurting this halacha. He said to him, "Adriz tar yosim ikan tame." So he basically asked him once again, okay, the blood was tar. Was it all blood is tar? Only until revis? And then after that, it's tummy. What is it? And he kicked him. He became angry with him. So Amarle, Rabbi Zreika. So the gid the shalacha adba deva, because he asked you a question, you got angry with him. So Amarle, no. The gid havi dasi no, because I wasn't holding right. I wasn't thinking about it. As my mind wasn't settled, and they asked me that. That's why I got upset. Why? It says, and your life will be tluyim, right? Will hang, right? Right? Will hang. A person is semi-settled, right? If he has all his food for the year, okay? If he has all the food for the year, and pachto laila v'yomam, a person who's basically scared at night and day, that's a person who basically he buys his grain, right, in a small amount. He buys a small amount, and he uses for a couple days, a couple weeks, whatever it is, but not for the entire year. He doesn't have a huge quantity. And you'll never, right, have belief in your life, right? You'll never be sure. Right? That's a person who basically wakes up every morning, doesn't have any food, he has to go to the bakery. Right? Such a person, his mind is never settled, right? I rely on my bread, right? In other words, I rely on bread from the baker every day. Therefore, my mind is always unsettled because I never know where my next meal is coming from. So therefore, I'm very easily unsettled. And therefore, he asked this question, and I didn't know the answer. And therefore, I was upset. Nevertheless, getting back to the halacha, u'ma'al kadun. So what's that halacha? So Rabbi Yeshua ben Psara al dam devila shu Torah. So he said, okay. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Psara said that the blood of a nevela is tahor. So mahutar, once again, doesn't really specify. Is it all blood? Was it mahutar? So told me the hachshir. Two different things here. And we talk about tuma, right? There's two halachas, right? There's the halacha of where something actually becomes tameh, right? It's a source of tuma. And there's also something else when it comes to liquids can it be machshir something with the tuma, right? Food does not become tameh unless it's moistened by a liquid. So this liquid that we're talking about is tahor milahachshir. It can't make something touch food and make that now susceptible to tumah. So it's tahor milahachshir. However, when it comes to mitame, something is already, let's say, moistened the food and it touches his blood, then it would certainly become tameh, right? So that which we were talking about before, that is tahor, it only meant that it's tahor from being machshir tumah for a liquid. And tamatanina, like learn over there, dama sheretz kibsara. So when it comes to the blood of a sheretz, of one of the creepy crawlers, the blood of it. Now we know about the flesh of it, but what about the blood of it? So the blood of the sheretz is kibsaro, is just like its flesh, which is metame vein machshir. It is metame things. It makes things tame if it touches it, but it's not. It does not make it susceptible to tumah. But it says over there we have nothing else which is similar to this. So what do you mean there's nothing else? What about the blood of a nevela? You just said it's the same halachas, right? That it is metame, right? Vein machshir. So Gemara says, no, kashir tumasa. No, we're talking about the shear of the tuma. When it comes to by the sheretz, right, it has its own unique of tuma kadosha, right, the size of a lentil. So in other words, we don't find anything like that that has the same halachas of its blood as it does with its flesh. But however, there are other halachas that his blood is matame kibsaro, i.e., when it comes to the blood of a nevela. And on Rabbi Yesi, Pliga Batre Amarai, two Amarai argue about this. Chadam are tame, v'chadam are tahor. One says the blood is tameh, right? In other words, it's mitame. That one says it's tahor. So man davar tameh Rabbi Huda. The one who says it's tameh is like Rabbi Huda. Well, man davar tahor. The one who says it is tahor. In other words, it doesn't become tameh. Rabbi Yeshua ben Psara. That's Rabbi Yeshua ben Parsa of ben Psara. That if it's if there is blood of revis, he holds it's not mitame. Like we said earlier, of the last interpretation of what's it called of. Right, that was the case of Rabbi Shua ben Psara says al dam nevela shu tahor. Right, so that would be that opinion. And Omar le Rav Abduma deminuchusa. So he says v'yos, it's true. The Rabbi Huda Marina devei nesiavi. Right, he was the posek, the Rav, the Mar of the house of the Nasi, right, which was Rabbi's house, and therefore he was the one who said that the blood was tahor, and therefore that went like and therefore that went like Rabbi Yehuda. And now we say, just going back to the end of the Mishnah, we say a person shouldn't go into the mikdash with hems or whatever it is because he can hide coins. Hashem Yaniv, because he'll become poor, and people say, oh, because he still became poor. Satani Rabbi Shmuel, Kavitz la Yitron, Mipnei Chashar. Also, a person with long hair should not go ahead and do the truma because he can go ahead and hide coins in his hair. Right? And Tani also says, Hagizbar Mayu Mefas Fiskin Bekilo. They used to go ahead and basically and separate their woolen clothing in order that they couldn't be coins between and tani. And also it says, they would make talk with him. They would talk to make sure he talks, because this way he wouldn't be able to go ahead and put coins in his mouth, right? Go ahead and put, why doesn't he just go put water in his mouth? Right, put water in his mouth. Therefore, he can't open his mouth to put coins in, because he has water there. Because of the bracha, he has to go ahead and make a bracha of lahafish truma, and he can't do that with water in his mouth. And Rav Shmuel Bar Nachman Shem Yonasan, we find that this concept of a person should be clean in front of Hashem and clean in front, without any doubt, in front of Hashem, in front of man. We learn that from Psukim and Torah, Nevi'im, and Ksubim. So Shadim Tzarich Leitzei Yidei Abrios Kaderch Tzarich Leitzei Yidei Amakam. Person should basically, the same way he should appease Hashem and remain clean, so do should in front of man. But Torah Minai, and where do we see in the Torah? The pasuk says, "Vayisim Nikimi Hashem Yisrael." A person should be clean in front of Hashem and the Jewish people. But Nevi'im Minai also, and Nevi'im says, "Dechsi Kelelakim Chulei Yisrael Hu Yodea." It says over there, Hashem knows that he's clean, and also that also Bnei Yisrael know. And Ksuvim, and also in Ksuvim, where do we see that? The pasuk says, "Umatzachen v'seichel tov b'nei Elokim v'yadam." Right? We also brought this pasuk in the Mishnah that says you should find good favor in the eyes of Hashem and the eyes of man. And Gamliel Zuga Shal Rabbi Yosi Bar Rabbi Bun, yes, Rabbi Bun, Eza Mechuvar Shavikulam, which is the best pasuk. Samarlei, Vayisim Nekim Hashem Yisrael. Person should remain clean in front of Hashem and Yisrael, in front of Hashem and Jews, that did not have any doubt. Therefore, go in, pockets empty, nothing available to go ahead and steal, and therefore, everybody. Tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, we will continue.
Shkach.
Have a wonderful day and a good night.
Shkayach. Enjoy, Rabbi.
Shkach. Good morning. Good morning.